When my son sent me that message saying, "I'd rather be without a mother than lose my wife," I didn't cry, I didn't beg, I didn't plead. I simply picked up my phone, canceled the delayed honeymoon trip that I had paid for, and sold the imported car that was in my name. I communicated that the apartment where he lived would be taken back, and I blocked all 243 messages of despair that came afterward. Because if there is one thing I have learned in 52 years of life, it is that respect is not begged for. It is imposed. But before continuing this story, if you like real accounts of people who do not accept disrespect, subscribe to the channel and take a moment to tell me in the comments where you are listening to this story right now. Let me tell you how I got to this point. My name is Lucy. I am 52 years old, and I spent the last 28 years of my life dedicating myself to my only son, Ryan. I became a widow at 35 when my husband died in a car crash. Ryan was only 9 months old. It was devastating, but I had a baby to raise and couldn't afford the luxury of falling apart. I took the life insurance payout and invested it into opening a small home decor store. I worked day and night, weekends, holidays. Ryan stayed in a makeshift crib in the storage room while I helped customers. When he got older, he did his homework on the store counter. He grew up watching his mother grind, build, fight for every single cent. And it worked. The store thrived. I opened the second one 5 years later, a third one 3 years after that. Today, I own 3 high-end stores that bring in very good money, and everything I built was with the thought of giving my son what I never had: security, comfort, a quality education. Ryan went to the best private schools. He got his business degree at an expensive university. When he graduated at 23, I set him up with a job as a manager in one of my stores, a generous salary way above what the market would pay someone with zero real experience. But he was my son. I wanted him to have a good life. At 25, I bought an apartment. I put it in my name for financing reasons, but I told him it was his. A fully furnished gift, decorated, ready for him to move in. A year later, I bought an imported car, also in my name, for insurance and tax purposes, but strictly for his use. Ryan had everything, absolutely everything. And I didn't regret giving it to him. He was my son, my only boy, and I had the means to provide a comfortable life for him. The problem wasn't giving it to him. The problem was that I raised an adult who didn't know the value of a damn thing. 2 years ago, Ryan met Chloe at a party. She was 24 at the time. She was pretty, always dressed to the nines, came from a middle-class family. She didn't work, claimed she was searching for her calling. Translation: she lived off her parents without doing anything productive. From their very first date, I knew. That woman looked at Ryan and saw a winning lottery ticket. She saw the imported car, the condo, the designer clothes, the expensive restaurants, and she saw an endless well of comfort, all without having to lift a finger. But Ryan was in love, completely under her spell. 6 months later, he announced their engagement. I tried to talk to him, suggested they wait a bit longer, get to know each other better. He wouldn't listen. They had an expensive wedding that, of course, I paid the lion's share for. Chloe moved into the apartment, and Ryan's life turned into an endless cycle of catering to whims. She wanted to dine out 3 times a week. She wanted new clothes every week, wanted trips, spas, expensive hair salons. And Ryan, who made good money but not nearly enough for that kind of lifestyle, started coming to me for help. "Mom, can you transfer $2,000? Chloe saw a bag she's been wanting for months. Mom, I need $3,000. We're going to the Hamptons for the weekend. Mom, can you pay off the credit card this month? We went a little overboard." And I paid. I always paid, because he was my son, and I didn't want him to struggle. Until 2 months ago, when he asked me for something different. "Mom, I want to give Chloe a trip to Europe as an anniversary gift. 15 days in Paris, London, and Rome. Can you cover it?" 15 days in Europe would cost at least $25,000. Flights, 5-star hotels, restaurants, tours, and I said no. For the first time in 28 years, I told my son, no. "Ryan, this is too much. You have an excellent salary. If you want to give her this trip, save your money, plan for it, but I am not paying." He was in shock. He had never heard the word no from me. He stormed out of my house, pouting, complaining that I was selfish, that I had money but didn't want to spend it on his happiness. 3 days later, Chloe showed up at my house alone. She played nice at first, But when I stood my ground on the refusal, the mask slipped. Look, Lucy, I'm going to be blunt. Ryan is my husband now. You need to understand your place. You can't treat him like a child anymore, deciding what he can and cannot have. If you don't want to pay for the trip, that's your problem. But stop filling his head with nonsense about us spending too much. I sat there in silence, processing the sheer audacity of this woman walking into my home and speaking to me like that. And another thing, she kept going. Ryan needs to choose. Either he is your obedient little boy who accepts your opinion on everything, or he is my husband building a life with me. He can't be torn between the two of us. Chloe, I have never divided my son. I have always supported his choices, including marrying you, even when I didn't agree with it. Then prove it. Stop causing drama and pay for the damn trip. And she left. Just walked right out, making it crystal clear that this was an ultimatum. I spent days thinking about what to do. Was I being controlling? Was I interfering too much? I talked to Sarah, my best friend. She didn't sugarcoat it. Lucy, you raised a dependent son, and now you have a manipulative daughter-in-law exploiting that. You need to cut the umbilical cord before it's too late. But I didn't have to make any decisions because that was when I got the text that changed everything. Mom, Chloe gave me an ultimatum. Either you stop interfering in our lives and respect our decisions, or she's leaving. And I can't lose her, so I'm letting you know. I'd rather be without a mother than lose my wife. The choice is yours. I read that 3 times, every word sinking in like a blade. I'd rather be without a mother. My son, who I raised alone, who I gave everything to, who I sacrificed my own life for to ensure his comfort, was telling me he preferred to be without me. And you know what I felt? It wasn't sadness. It was absolute clarity. I replied, "Perfect, Ryan. Now you two figure it out." And I hit send. Then I started making phone calls, and within 2 hours, my son's comfortable life was over. To fully understand why that message destroyed me, I need to take you back to the beginning. I need to tell you how I raised Ryan and everything I did for him. Because it wasn't a little, it was literally my entire life. When my husband Mark died in that crash back in 2007, my world caved in. Ryan was 9 months old. He was just starting to crawl, saying his first words. He was a healthy, happy baby who didn't understand why his dad wasn't coming home anymore. And I was completely lost. We had some savings, but nothing significant. The insurance payout was about $120,000. With that money, I faced the hardest choice of my life. Hoard it all just to survive while I looked for whatever job I could find, or roll the dice and try to build something of my own. I chose to gamble. I rented a small commercial space in an up-and-coming neighborhood and opened Decorar, my first home decor shop. I poured half the money into the lease, the initial inventory, the renovations. The other half I locked away as an emergency fund. Those first few years were hell. I'd wake up at 5 in the morning, get Ryan ready, drop him at daycare by 7, open the store at 8, stay until 7 at night, pick up my son, get home dead on my feet, bathe him, feed him, put him to bed. And then when he was finally asleep, I'd do the bookkeeping, plan the inventory study, interior design trends online. Weekends simply didn't exist. Saturday, the store was open. Sunday, I was out hunting down suppliers, hitting trade shows, looking for unique products. Ryan grew up inside those stores, crawling between fabrics, throw pillows, and framed art. His earliest memories are definitely laced with the smell of paint and varnish. But it worked. The store caught on. The neighborhood boomed. My clients started referring other clients. I built a reputation for quality and good taste. In 2012, 5 years later, I opened the second store in a mall. In 2015, the third one in a high-end district. And with financial success came the ability to give Ryan everything I never had. I put him in the best private school in the city when he turned 6. Tuition was steep, but the facilities were flawless. Fluent English from childhood, science labs, sports courts, cutting-edge technology. While other kids were packed into overcrowded public schools, my son had dedicated teachers and small class sizes. When it was time for college, I didn't even blink at the $3,000 a month tuition. Business administration at one of the top private universities. 4 years investing over $150,000 just in his education. And it was worth every penny because it was my son's future. Ryan never had to work a day during college. He never had to choose between buying a textbook or eating lunch. He never had to catch 3 buses to get to class. He had a simple car I bought him at 18. Nothing luxurious but his own wheels. He had a generous allowance. He had it all. When he graduated at 23, he didn't have to face the brutal job market, send out resumes, or sit through humiliating interviews. I created a manager position at one of my stores specifically for him. Starting salary of $8,000 a month, way beyond what managers with years of experience were making. But Mom, I don't have any experience. He had said it with the humility he used to have back then. You'll learn, and you'll learn on the job. Being respected and well paid, that's how you start a career. And he did learn. Ryan wasn't lazy, I'll give him that. He showed up, put in the hours, treated the customers well. He wasn't the most brilliant manager in the world, but he was competent. The problem is, he never had to prove his worth. He never had to fight for a promotion, never had to negotiate a raise. Everything was just handed to him. At 25, when most young people are scraping pennies together for a down payment on a tiny shoebox apartment, I gave him a 2-bedroom condo fully furnished in a gated community with a doorman and amenities. A $400,000 investment. I put it in my name for practical reasons. The mortgage rate was cheaper using my credit history. The property taxes were lower because I already owned other real estate, and legally, it would just be easier to transfer down the line. But I made it clear, this is yours, son, your home. Take good care of it. And he did. Ryan was a good kid, organized, clean. He'd host his friends, invite me over for dinner. We were close. We had a healthy relationship, or so I thought. A year later came the car, an imported sedan, brand new off the lot, $50,000. Again, in my name for insurance reasons. An individual with his driving profile pays absurd insurance premiums, but as a business owner, I got a corporate discount. Mom, this is too much. He had said when he saw the car at the dealership with a giant red bow on the hood. You deserve it, son. You've been working with me for 3 years. You're responsible, dedicated. This is recognition. I saw tears in his eyes. He hugged me tight and said, I love you so much, Mom. I don't know where I'd be without you. And I believed him. I believed he understood the value of all of it, that he recognized the sacrifices, that when he grew up, he would be a grateful and generous man, just like I tried to be. What an illusion. Ryan had a life that 99% of kids his age only dreamed of. His own apartment, an imported car, a stable job with an excellent salary, 0 debt, 0 worries. And all of this at 26 years old. When he met Chloe, he was at the absolute peak of this comfortable life, and that is exactly what she saw. A young, handsome man, with assets and no financial problems. It was love at first sight, at least for him. For her, I am certain it was interest at first sight. But I didn't say a word. I didn't interfere. I was polite, welcoming. I even gave her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe I was being unfair. Maybe she really did love my son. Time proved my gut instinct was dead on. Chloe didn't love Ryan. She loved what he provided. Or rather, what I provided through him. And when that woman gave her ultimatum, he chose. He chose the woman he had known for 2 years over the mother who had sacrificed 28 years for him. I'd rather be without a mother than lose my wife. Those words echoed in my head as I picked up the phone and began to dismantle, piece by piece, the comfortable life I had built for him. If he wanted to be without a mother, he was about to find out exactly what that meant. Ryan met Chloe in June 2022 at a college buddy's birthday party. He came home that night with a spark in his eyes I hadn't seen in years. He was smitten, completely enchanted. Mom, I met an amazing woman today, Chloe. She's beautiful, smart, funny. We talked all night. I already asked her out for Saturday. I was happy for him. Ryan had been in a few relationships before, but nothing serious. It was time for him to find someone special, maybe build a family. At 26, wanting that was natural. I'm happy for you, son. When do I get to meet her? Easy, Mom, he laughed. It's just the first date. Let's not scare the girl away. Those first few months were intense. Ryan was completely consumed by that relationship. He went out with her every weekend, talked about her constantly, lived with his phone glued to his hand, firing off texts. He was in that overwhelming honeymoon phase where nothing else matters. When he finally introduced me to Chloe, 3 months after their first date, I admit she made a good initial impression. She really was gorgeous. Long, shiny hair, makeup always flawless, manicured nails, designer clothes. She was 24 and had this rehearsed smile that looked straight out of a toothpaste commercial. I invited them both over for dinner on a Saturday. I went all out on the menu. I wanted her to feel welcome. During dinner, Chloe was polite, complimented the food, asked questions about the stores. She seemed genuinely interested. Miss Lucy, what an inspiring story. Building all of this by yourself, raising a son, it must have been so hard. It was challenging, but it was worth it. Everything I did was with Ryan in mind. He is very lucky to have such a dedicated mother. At the time, I took it as a sincere compliment. Today, I noticed the faintly ironic tone that slipped right past me. What really caught my attention was when I asked about her work. Chloe, Ryan mentioned you're looking for opportunities in your field. What was your major again? She looked visibly uncomfortable. Oh, I did 2 years of psychology, but I took a break. It wasn't quite what I expected. Right now I'm in a phase of self-discovery, trying to figure out my true calling before committing to something permanent. Translation: she was 24. She didn't work, didn't study, and had zero concrete plans. She lived at her parents' house without contributing a dime. Ryan jumped to her defense immediately. Chloe is taking online courses, looking into different fields. It's important not to rush a career choice, right, Mom? I just smiled and changed the subject, but the writing was on the wall. Over the next few months, I started noticing troubling patterns. Ryan was spending more and more. Expensive restaurants, gifts, weekend getaways. His salary, generous as it was, started falling short. Mom, can you loan me $2,000? I promise I'll pay you back next month. I loaned it to him. He didn't pay it back the next month, same request. And the month after that, until loaning simply turned into giving. Chloe was always the driving force behind these expenses. Babe, I saw this gorgeous dress, but it's a little pricey. Babe, my friends are going to the Hamptons for the holiday. We can't just not go, babe. My phone is lagging, I need an upgrade. And Ryan, desperate to keep her happy, catered to every single whim. I tried talking to him a few times. Son, you are spending way too much. You need to get a grip on your finances. Make a budget. Mom, relax. I'm making good money. I can afford a few luxuries. But you're asking me for money every month. That means you are not making enough for the lifestyle you're trying to live. It's just until I get organized. Pretty soon I'll stop asking. But it didn't stop. It only escalated. When Ryan announced their engagement just 8 months after meeting Chloe, I nearly fell out of my chair. Son, are you sure? Don't you want to wait a little longer? Get to know each other better? Mom, when you know, you know. I love her. I want to build a life with her. And have you two talked about practical things? Life plans, finances, kids? We talked, yeah, we're on the same page. I highly doubted it, but it wasn't my life, it was his. If he wanted to make this mistake, he had to make it. The wedding was set for March 2023, a 150-guest affair at a sophisticated venue. When Ryan brought me the estimate, I swallowed hard. $80,000. Son, this is way beyond reasonable. Mom, it's the wedding of my life. I'm only doing this once. And Chloe has always dreamed of a beautiful wedding. Of course, she dreamed of it with other people's money. I ended up footing 60% of the bill. Her parents paid 20%, and Ryan chipped in the remaining 20%, draining every last cent of his savings. Chloe didn't contribute a single dime. After all, she didn't work. The wedding was beautiful, I'll admit. Chloe looked radiant in her $15,000 dress. Ryan was happy, beaming, and I was right there, smiling for the cameras, but with a heavy weight sitting on my chest. During the reception, Chloe's mother Brenda sat down next to me. Lucy, your generosity is just admirable. Ryan is a lucky boy. I just want him to be happy. And now that they're married, I imagine you'll keep helping them start this new chapter, right? Newlyweds have so many expenses. And there it was, the expectation laid bare on the table. I was going to be the couple's personal ATM. Chloe moved into the apartment I had given Ryan. Immediately, everything changed. She started redecorating with his money, of course. Swapped out the furniture, bought new drapes, filled the place with insanely expensive decorative junk. Their lifestyle became even more lavish. Now it took 2 incomes to sustain that level of luxury. And Ryan kept coming to me more frequently than ever. "Mom, can you transfer 3,000? The bills this month were crazy. Mom, I need 5,000. Chloe wants to take an anniversary trip. Mom, can you pay off the card this month?" We went a little overboard renovating the apartment, and I paid. I always paid because he was my son, and I couldn't bear the thought of him struggling. Until 2 months ago, when he asked me for the Europe trip. $25,000 for 15 days funding Chloe's luxury tour of Paris, London, and Rome. And for the first time, I said no. Not because I didn't have the cash, I did, but because I realized I was creating a monster. A 28-year-old adult entirely dependent, married to a woman who saw him and me as nothing more than an unlimited slush fund. When Chloe showed up at my house 3 days after I said no and confronted me with that sheer arrogance, I knew. She had total control over my son, and she was weaponizing it. Ryan needs to choose. Either he's your obedient son or he's my husband. And a week later he chose. He sent that text. "I'd rather be without a mother than lose my wife." Chloe had won. Or at least she thought she had, because there was one thing she didn't know. I was not the kind of woman who accepted ultimatums, and I certainly didn't accept disrespect. After I hit send on that reply to Ryan, "Perfect, now you two figure it out." I stood there for a few minutes staring at my phone screen. My head was surprisingly clear. There were no tears, no panic, just resolve. I called Sarah. She picked up on the second ring. "Lucy, is everything okay?" It happened. Ryan sent a text saying he'd rather be without a mother than lose Chloe. And I am going to grant his wish. "Lucy, wait. Take a breath. Don't do anything impulsive." It's not impulse. It's clarity. I spent 28 years building a comfortable life for him, and now he throws it all in my face because some woman he barely knows told him to? I'm done, Sarah. I am exhausted. What are you going to do? I'm cutting the cord once and for all. I'm going to teach my son what it actually means to be without a mother. I hung up and grabbed my contacts. The first call was to Arthur, my lawyer of 15 years. "Good afternoon, Miss Lucy. How can I help you?" "Arthur, I need your urgent counsel. I have an apartment and a car in my name, but they are being used by my son. I want to repossess both. What is the legal way to do this?" There was a pause. "Miss Lucy, has there been an issue?" "There has, and I need it resolved today." "What's the procedure?" "If the assets are in your name and there was never a formal transfer of ownership legally, they are yours. For the apartment, since he resides there, you need to serve him an eviction notice with at least 30 days warning. As for the car, since it's yours, you can take it back whenever you want." "Perfect. Draft the notice for the apartment. I want it delivered tomorrow. And the car, I'll handle repossessing it myself today." "Miss Lucy, are you sure about this? He is your son. It is exactly because he is my son that I have to do this. He will never grow up if I keep funding this fantasy life." "Understood. I'll prepare the paperwork." Second call to an auto broker I'd worked with for years. "Clark, I need to sell a car. Urgently. Do you know any buyers who can close a deal fast?" "I sure do, Miss Lucy. What kind of car?" I gave him the details of Ryan's imported sedan. "It's flawless, only 2 years old, fully serviced. I'll take a fair offer, but I need to close by tomorrow. I'll make a few calls and get back to you in an hour." Third call to the HR manager for my stores. "Claudia, I need you to draft a termination letter without cause for Ryan. He is being let go from the company on Monday." Silence on the other end of a line. "Miss Lucy, did something serious happen?" "This isn't company business, it's personal. But he no longer works for me. Calculate his severance package to the penny. 401k prorated vacation notice, pay. I want everything done strictly by the book. I don't want to give him any room to complain that I was unfair. It will be done. I am so sorry about this." "Me too, but it has to be done." Fourth call to the bank. I removed Ryan as an authorized user on all my accounts. I canceled the supplementary credit card he had. I blocked any possible way for him to access my funds. Fifth call, back to Sarah. Can you come with me to pick up Ryan's car? It's in his building's parking garage. I have the spare key. Lucy, you're just going to go take the car? It's my car, Sarah. It's in my name. I pay the insurance, I pay the registration. I am simply taking back what's mine. What if he's home? He's at work. He'll be there until 7. I have the whole afternoon. Sarah agreed to ride with me. 2 hours later, we were in the parking garage of the complex where Ryan lived. I used my ID. I was registered with the building as the vehicle's owner and had clearance to enter. The car was sitting right there, gleaming spotless. Ryan took good care of it. I felt a pang in my chest, looking at that car I had gifted with so much love, but the anger overpowered any sentimentality. I got in, started the engine, and drove off. Sarah followed me in her car. We drove straight to the dealership where the broker had already set up a meeting with a buyer. The guy offered $40,000. The car, brand new, was $50,000. It was a solid deal considering the rush. I took it on the spot. Instant wire transfer paperwork signed. In 2 hours, the car was sold. When I got home, I had a text from Clark, the broker. Deal is done, $40,000 is in your account. And I had 17 missed messages from Ryan. He had gotten home and saw the car was gone. Mom, the car is missing. Did you take the car? Why? Mom, answer me. Where is the car? Are you serious? You can't just take the car. Mom, I need the car to get to work tomorrow. Please bring it back. We can talk. The messages kept getting more and more frantic. I didn't reply to a single one. The next day, Saturday morning, Ryan showed up at my door. He knocked, rang the bell, yelled my name. I didn't open it. I sat on the couch, drinking my coffee, listening to him on the other side. Mom, open this door. We need to talk. You can't do this. That car was mine. Mom, for the love of God, Chloe is freaking out. We need the car. I waited him out. After 40 minutes, he finally left. On Monday, Claudia from HR called. Miss Lucy Ryan just got to work. I pulled him into a meeting and handed him his termination papers. He is in shock. I expected as much. How did he react? He went pale, asked if it was because of the car. I explained that it was your decision, irrevocable, but that his entire severance would be paid out according to the law. He signed the paperwork, but he was visibly shaken. Thank you, Claudia. He asked to speak with you, said he needs to talk to you urgently. I have nothing to say to him. The messages kept rolling in. 10, 20, 30 a day, blocked calls, desperate attempts to reach me. Mom, give me a chance to explain. You can't just fire me like this. I've worked for you for 5 years. Please, we are desperate over here. Chloe won't stop crying. Mom, don't do this to us. By the end of the second week, the message count was well past 200, all unread, all ignored. And then the eviction notice for the apartment arrived. Ryan had 30 days to vacate the premises. The property was going to be sold. That was when it hit him. It wasn't a bluff. It wasn't a temporary tantrum. It was real. His mother had truly cut him out of her life, and along with it, she had cut off everything she provided. And for the first time in his life, my 28-year-old son was going to have to fend for himself without a mother. Exactly as he had requested. The third week after the cutoff was when Ryan finally grasped the gravity of the situation. Up until then, I think he believed this was just a phase, that I would cool off and backtrack. That the mother who always caved, always forgave, always fixed his problems, would eventually cave again. But when he received the formal notice from Arthur informing him he had until October 15th to vacate the apartment, the reality truly sank in. Sarah told me, because she still spoke to Ryan occasionally, that he spent an entire hour sitting on the living room floor, staring at that piece of paper in a state of shock. Chloe was screaming in the background, yelling that this had to be illegal, that nobody could just kick a person out of their own home. But I could, because the house was never legally his. It was in my name. It always was. I had let him live there as a loan, a perk, and now I was taking back what belonged to me. The car had been sold 2 weeks prior. The $40,000 I got for it, I donated every last cent to a charity that helps widowed mothers start their own businesses. That was deliberate. I wanted Ryan to know I didn't keep the money. That this wasn't about greed, it was about principle. Ryan tried to get to me in every way possible. He showed up at my front door at least 10 times. I never opened it. I installed a Ring camera specifically for that reason. I'd see it was him and simply ignore it. He went to my stores. I instructed the staff to call security if he showed up. The first time, he made a scene. This company was built for me. My mother always said that. You can't kick me out. The security guard was polite but firm. Sir, the owner was clear. You are no longer welcome on the premises. Please leave or we will have to call the police. Ryan walked out, humiliated, with customers staring, recognizing him as the owner's son who had just been thrown out of his own family business. The texts kept coming, 243 in total, until I finally blocked his number completely. The last ones were different from the first ones. The first ones were pure anger. You're being ridiculous. This is petty revenge. You're going to regret this. The ones in the middle were manipulation. Mom, you know I didn't mean what I said. Chloe was pressuring me. I love you. I've always loved you. Please don't do this to us. The final ones were pure desperation. Mom, we don't have any money left. The bills are due. I can't afford a deposit on another place. Please, just give me a little more time, please. I blocked his number when it hit message 243, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. Every text was a knife to the gut, and I had to protect myself so I wouldn't cave. Because the temptation to cave was always right there. He was my son, my only boy. The child I nursed, raised, taught to walk, to read, to be a decent human being. Watching him suffer felt like tearing pieces off my own soul. Sarah tried to convince me to at least sit down with him. Lucy, I understand your stance. He was incredibly disrespectful. But don't you think you've taken this too far? He lost his job, his car, he's about to lose his home. He is your son. Sarah, if I back down now, what does he learn? That he can disrespect me, throw me away whenever his wife commands it, and in the end, Mommy always comes running to the rescue. He's 28 years old. It is past time he grew up. And what if he can't bounce back? What if he just sinks completely? Then he sinks, and it will be his responsibility, not mine. I did my part. I did entirely too much, actually. Now it's time he does his. But the truth is, I wasn't sleeping right. I'd wake up in the dead of night thinking about him. Was he eating? Did he have enough money for the basics? Was he okay? I found out later through Sarah the gritty details of what his life had become. His severance package came out to about $6,000 after all the deductions. It sounded like a lot, but it wasn't when you lose everything all at once. Ryan tried to use that money to put a deposit down on a new rental. He quickly discovered that without a steady job, without a guarantor, and with a non-existent credit history, because he never had to build his own credit, nobody would rent to him. The leasing offices rejected him systematically. He tried renting directly from owners. A few were willing, but they demanded 3 months security deposit plus the first month's rent up front. 4 months of rent in one shot, and barely decent apartments were running $2,000 a month. That was $8,000 just to get the keys, plus moving costs, plus basic furniture, because the furniture in the apartment I gave him was all mine too, registered under my name. Ryan did the math. If he blew it all on an apartment, he'd have nothing left to live on until he found a job. And finding a job wasn't easy. He sent out resumes to dozens of companies. He quickly learned that being the manager at his mom's store didn't impress anyone. Recruiters asked about his achievements, his metrics, the projects he spearheaded. He had none of that. He had been a manager in name only. In practice, he was an overpaid employee doing a floor salesman's job. And then there was the Chloe situation. According to Sarah, Chloe was in full-blown panic mode. The luxury lifestyle had vanished overnight. No expensive dinners, no new clothes, no pampering. And she was not handling it well. Ryan, you need to fix this. Go to your mother, beg her, do whatever it takes. I didn't get married to live paycheck to paycheck. Chloe, I tried. She won't even look at me. She changed the locks, blocked my number, kicked me out of the stores. Then try harder. Cry on her doorstep, make a scene. I don't know, you can't just roll over and take this. But Ryan was already starting to realize something he should have realized a long time ago. Chloe wasn't worried about him. She was worried about the money, about the lifestyle. When he stopped being the source of that comfort, she stopped being the devoted wife. The fights between them were constant. Sarah heard about it from the neighbors. The couple that once seemed so happy, so deeply in love, was now screaming at each other on a daily basis. And the deadline to vacate the apartment was creeping up. October 15th. There were 12 days left when I permanently blocked his number. Ryan had to make a choice: blow the rest of his severance trying to rent a place, or hoard it and look for cheaper alternatives. Rooms in boarding houses, shared basements, anything. And he had to do it while desperately hunting for a job, while managing a wife in crisis, and while processing the fact that his mother, who had always been his safe harbor, had simply locked the gates. I knew all of this, and every piece of information that reached me was pure torture. But I couldn't give in. Not now. Because if I gave in, all he would learn is that disrespect carries no real-world consequences, that mom always forgives, always comes back, always saves the day. And that lesson, as agonizing as it was for both of us, had to be learned, even if it cost me sleepless nights and a heart shattered into a million pieces. Sarah called me on a Tuesday night, 3 days before Ryan's deadline to move out. I could tell by her voice that something had happened. "Lucy, I need to tell you something. You're not going to like it, but you need to know." My chest tightened. "Is he okay? Did something happen to Ryan?" "Physically, he's fine. But Lucy, he and Chloe had a massive blowout today. The neighbors called the super. It was ugly." I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. What happened? Ryan got home after another day of job hunting with zero luck. He was crushed. And Chloe started tearing into him, calling him a failure, saying he lost everything because of his stupid pride, that he should have groveled to you from the very beginning. And he exploded. He told her that she was the one to blame for all of it, that she was the one who gave the ultimatum, who forced him to choose, that it was because of her he lost his mother. And then Chloe, Lucy, she let the truth slip. My stomach churned. What truth? She told him she was only with him for the comfortable life, that she never actually loved him, that what she loved was the condo, the car, the dinners, the vacations, and that now that he didn't have any of that, there was no point in staying together. That she didn't get married to live like a poor person. I felt rage and a twisted sense of vindication wash over me at the same time. Rage at the cruel way this woman was treating my son. Vindication, because he was finally seeing what I had seen all along. And Ryan was in shock. He couldn't even form a sentence to reply. He just stood there while she packed her bags and walked out of the apartment. She left. She did. She went back to her parents' house, sent him a text an hour later saying she wanted a divorce. Lucy. She destroyed him. He called me crying, like really crying, sobbing. He said he lost everything. His mom, his job, his home, and now his wife. And he doesn't know what to do. I sat in silence, processing it. A part of me, the mother part, wanted to rush over to him, hold him, tell him everything was going to be okay, that I would fix it all. But the rational part knew I couldn't do that. "Sarah, do you think I'm being too cruel?" "I don't know, Lucy. I know he hurt you deeply. I know he chose her over you in a horrific way. But I also know he is paying a massive price for it. And deep down, he was manipulated. Not that it justifies it. But he's an adult, Sarah. He should have thought about that before he sent me that text. He should have valued what he had before he threw it away." "I know. I'm just keeping you in the loop and asking you to think about whether at some point you couldn't at least just talk to him. You don't have to forgive him. You don't have to fix everything. But maybe just listen." I hung up and spent hours lost in thought. Ryan had lost his wife. The woman he threw me away for had just confessed she never truly loved him, that she was only there for the cash, for the comfort that ironically came from me. Was he finally getting it? Had the lesson finally landed? 2 days later, Ryan sent a text from a different number, probably a borrowed phone. Since I hadn't blocked that specific number, the message came through. "Mom, I know I have no right to ask you for anything. I know I ruined everything. Chloe left. She said she was only with me for the money, for the comfort. You were right all along, and I was too blind to see it. Tomorrow, I have to be out of the apartment. I found a room in a boarding house for $500 a month. I'll be sharing it with 3 other guys. I sold everything of value I had left, my watch, my laptop, even my wedding ring, just to have enough cash for the first few months. I'm not asking for your help. I just wanted you to know that I get it now. I got it too late, but I get it. I am so sorry for everything. I read that message 5 times. He wasn't asking for money. He wasn't begging me to reverse my decision. He was just apologizing and giving me an update. That night, for the first time in weeks, I managed to sleep for a few solid hours. The next day, October 15th, Sarah went over to the apartment to help Ryan move. She took pictures and sent them to me. My heart ached looking at them. Ryan had 2 suitcases of clothes and 3 boxes of personal items. That was it. Everything else, furniture, decor, electronics, was left behind because it was mine. It was registered in my name. His entire life fit into 2 suitcases and 3 boxes. Sarah told me he was calm. Quiet, but calm. He didn't cry, didn't throw a fit. He simply packed his things, cleaned the apartment, left the keys with the doorman, and rode off in a beat-up cab toward a boarding house on the rough side of town. A 100-square-foot room shared with a line cook, a delivery driver, and a college student. A communal bathroom down the hall. A shared kitchen. A far cry from the 1,200-square-foot condo with 2 master suites he had before. And the worst part? Ryan still hadn't found a job. He was doing gig work deliveries, temping at events, anything that paid cash. His severance money was burning up fast. Between rent, basic groceries, transit, and trying to maintain some shred of dignity, that $6,000 was melting away. Sarah told me he was walking to job interviews to save on bus fare, that his diet consisted mainly of rice, beans, and eggs because that's what fit the budget. That he had visibly lost weight, developed deep, dark circles under his eyes, but that he kept trying. He hasn't given up, Lucy. He's hurting, he's struggling, but he hasn't quit. A part of me felt proud to see my son finally fighting for something, doing real work, not depending on anyone. But the other part, that motherly instinct that never truly dies, bled over every detail. I built an empire so he would be comfortable. And now he was in a tiny room sharing a toilet with strangers, eating fried eggs for lunch because it was all he could afford. Was this what I wanted? Was this the grand plan when I cut him out of my life? The answer was complicated. I didn't want him to suffer, but I wanted him to learn. And sometimes learning hurts. The question haunting me was, how long do I let this go on? How much suffering is enough for the lesson to stick? And the answer to that would come in a way I never saw coming. 3 weeks after Ryan moved out of the apartment, Sarah showed up at my house with a look on her face I couldn't quite read. It wasn't pity. It wasn't anger. It was something bordering on disgust. "I need to tell you about Chloe," she said as soon as she sat down. "What about her? Did she go back to bother Ryan?" "Worse. She's spreading lies all over town, telling anyone who will listen that you're a toxic, controlling mother who purposefully destroyed her marriage because you were jealous of your son." I let out a bitter laugh. Of course she is. That's her style. "Lucy, she's taking it far. She went to the church you guys used to attend, cried to the priest, said you manipulated Ryan, that you stripped him of everything out of pure malice. Some people are actually buying it. And Ryan? Is he defending her?" "No, he's not saying a word. When people ask, he changes the subject, but his silence is being taken as a confirmation by some." I felt the anger rising. Not for the first time I considered suing Chloe for defamation, but Arthur had advised me against doing anything. The more you react, the more fuel you add to her narrative. Let the people who truly know you judge your character. But what shocked me the most was finding out, also through Sarah, the gritty details of Ryan and Chloe's split. Chloe didn't just walk out. She tried to take everything she could carry from the condo before she left. Ryan stopped her. There was a physical altercation where she scratched his face. The neighbors called the cops. It was a degrading, humiliating scene. When the police arrived, Chloe was screaming that half that furniture was hers by marital right, that Ryan couldn't stop her from taking it. The officers explained that since the assets were registered in my name, neither of them had any legal claim to them. "So, you two don't own anything?" one of the cops asked in disbelief. "No," Ryan answered, his voice cracking. "Everything was my mom's. I never actually owned anything." Chloe left with only her clothes and personal items, and the next day she sent the text demanding a divorce. But a divorce, ironically, cost money. There were filing fees, lawyers, and neither of them had a dime. So they stayed technically married but separated. Chloe at her parents' house, Ryan at the boarding house. And it was at her parents' house that the biggest bombshell dropped. Sarah found out through a friend's sister who knew the family that Chloe had started dating another guy, barely a week after leaving Ryan. A 45-year-old divorced businessman who owned a chain of pharmacies, meaning she didn't waste a second. The minute she realized Ryan's well had run dry, she just hopped to the next one, like changing an outfit. When Ryan found out, because in a tight-knit town, nothing stays buried for long. It was the final blow. He called Sarah in the middle of the night, drunk. "She never loved me, Sarah. Not for a day, not for an hour. I was just a meal ticket. And when the meal ticket expired, so did I. I'm only worth what I can provide." Sarah stayed on the phone with him for hours, talking him down, making sure he didn't do anything stupid. The next day, she went to the boarding house and found a man she barely recognized. Ryan had lost almost 20 pounds. He had a scruffy beard, mismatched clothes, clearly just pulling whatever he could find out of those boxes without caring. His eyes were vacant, lifeless. She said he looked like a ghost of the man she knew. "He has hit rock bottom, Lucy. He's not eating right, he's not sleeping. He just landed a job as a salesman at a shoe store in the mall, but it pays minimum wage. With rent taking up half of that, he's got peanuts left for everything else. He's doing the math on how to survive on a few $100 a month. And is he making it? Barely, very barely. A part of me wanted to rush to him, bring him groceries, cash, blankets, anything. But the rational part knew I couldn't, not yet. He needed to hit the absolute bottom before he could start climbing back up. But Sarah wasn't finished. "There's one more thing. Chloe is trying to sue you." "Sue me? For what?" "She's claiming you caused her emotional distress by destroying her marriage, that you acted in bad faith by seizing marital assets that she's entitled to compensation." I almost laughed at the sheer audacity. Is she serious she consulted a lawyer? But the lawyer shot her down. "She doesn't have a case. The assets were yours, always were. You owe her nothing." He even warned her that if she moved forward with a frivolous lawsuit, she could be fined for bad faith litigation. Good. Let her sue. I'd love to see a judge put her in her place. Chloe didn't sue, but she kept spitting her venom, kept painting herself as the victim and me as the villain. And Ryan. Ryan stayed quiet. He didn't defend her, but he didn't defend me either. He was so broken, so shattered, that he didn't even have the energy to fight the lies. Sarah showed me a picture she took of him without him noticing. Ryan sitting on a park bench near his boarding house, eating a cheap bologna sandwich that was probably his dinner. Staring off into space, looking completely lost. That image burned itself into my brain. My son, who grew up dining in fine restaurants, who never lacked a single thing in his life, eating a cheap sandwich on a park bench. Was this what I wanted? Was this the end game when I cut him out? The answer was no. I never wanted him to suffer like this, but I wanted him to learn the value of a dollar, to understand that a comfortable life doesn't just fall from the sky, that relationships shouldn't be built on financial interest, that a mother's love isn't a blank check for disrespect. And he was learning that in the most painful way imaginable. But he was learning. The question was, how much longer would I let this go on before I reached out my hand? And the answer to that would come sooner than I expected. It was in late November, almost 3 months after the cutoff, that Ryan started trying again. But this time, it was different. It wasn't desperation. It wasn't anger. It was something more mature, more genuine. The first attempt was a letter, a real, handwritten letter on plain paper. It arrived in the mail with the boarding house as the return address. I hesitated to open it. Part of me didn't want to read it, didn't want to be swayed. But curiosity and, let's be honest, hope won out. Mom, I don't know if you'll read this. I don't know if I even have the right to write to you after everything, but I have to try. I've spent the last 3 months living in the real world, the world you always lived in and the one I never knew. The world where you have to choose between buying laundry detergent or a decent cut of meat, where you walk miles to save $3 on bus fare, where you wake up at 5 a.m. to clock in at 7 because it's the only shift available. I got a job, shoe salesman at the mall, minimum wage. I stand on my feet for 8 hours smiling at customers who are often incredibly rude trying to hit ridiculous sales quotas. It's exhausting. It's humiliating sometimes, but it's honest. And you know what I thought about on my first day? I thought about you. I thought about how you did this and so much worse for years, all by yourself, with a baby, building everything from nothing. And I never, not once, truly thanked you for it. I am sorry, Mom, for everything, for that awful text I sent you, for choosing a woman who only wanted my wallet over the woman who gave me life, for wasting everything you built, for never appreciating it. I'm not asking for anything. I don't expect you to forgive me if you can't. I just wanted you to know that I finally get it, Ryan. I cried reading that letter. I cried like I hadn't cried since the day I sent the text that changed our lives. Because right there on that paper was a sincerity I hadn't seen in him in years. Maybe I had never seen it. But I didn't write back. It wasn't time yet. 2 weeks later, Sarah told me Ryan had tried going to one of the stores. He didn't go inside. He knew he wasn't allowed. He stood across the street, just watching. One of my employees told me later that they saw him standing there, staring at the storefront for almost half an hour. He looked like he was staring at something he lost, the employee said. It was sad to watch. Ryan also tried reaching out through mutual acquaintances. He tracked down Mrs. Miller, my old neighbor who had known me for 20 years, and asked her to mediate. Miss Lucy, Mrs. Miller, called me one afternoon. Ryan came by to see me. He looks different, thinner, more serious, but also older, you know? He asked me to talk to you. He said he doesn't want money. He doesn't want you to fix anything. He just wants a chance to talk. What do you think, Joanne? Do you think it's genuine, or is he playing an angle? Look, I've known that boy since he was in diapers, and I can tell you this. That is not the same spoiled brat from before. That is a man who just got beat up by life. If he's faking it, he's the best actor I've ever seen. But I still didn't cave. Not because I didn't want to. God knows how badly I wanted to hug my son. But because I needed to be absolutely certain the change was permanent. In early December, Ryan tried a different approach. He started sending small gifts. Not expensive ones, he clearly didn't have the cash for that. They were simple things. Once it was a coffee mug with the words, "World's Best Mom." Couldn't have cost more than $10 at a discount store. It came with a note. Bought this with my first paycheck. Wanted you to have it. Another time, it was a cheap picture frame holding an old photo. Us with me holding him as a baby. He must have asked a relative to email him the digital file and had it printed. The note read, "We were happy and I didn't even know it." Every single gift was a dagger to my heart because it proved he was thinking of me spending the little he had. And it really was a little, just to try and bridge the gap. Sarah kept me updated constantly. "Lucy, he's doing great at his job. The manager praised him, said he's a hard worker, punctual, polite with the customers. They offered to promote him to shift supervisor in 3 months if he keeps it up." How much does a supervisor make? About $1,000 more a month. To him, living on pennies, that's a fortune. And Chloe vanished completely from his life. She's engaged to that rich pharmacist, getting married in March. She didn't even have the decency to finalize the divorce properly. She just abandoned the paperwork. So they're technically still married, but she couldn't care less. That made my blood boil, not for my sake, but for Ryan's. That woman had gutted my son, and now she was skipping into a new marriage like nothing ever happened. And Ryan, how did he take it? He said she can be with whoever she wants. that he just wants peace. That if he learned anything from all of this, the suffering was worth it. Mid-December, nearly 4 months after the cutoff, Ryan made one last attempt in a completely different way. He went to the cemetery where my husband, his father, is buried. I don't know how, but he figured out that I go there every year on the 25th, the anniversary of Mark's death, and he went there to wait for me. When I arrived, he was sitting on the grass near the headstone holding a white rose. He stood up when he saw me, but he didn't approach. He stayed about 15 feet away, respecting my space. "Mom," he said, his voice shaking, "I know you don't want to talk to me. I get it. But today is a special day. The day we always came here together. I thought maybe we could just be here, even if we're not standing next to each other, just to be close to Dad." I looked at him. He was even thinner. His clothes were clean but visibly worn, faded. His face lined by months of hard labor and restless nights. But his eyes were different. There was a gravity there I had never seen before. I stood in silence, paralyzed between the urge to embrace him and the need to hold my ground. Ryan took my silence as a rejection. He laid the white rose by the headstone, gave a small wave from afar, and started to walk away. That was when I finally spoke. "Ryan." He stopped, turned around, his eyes wide with shock. "Stay. You're right. Today is a day to be close to him, even if we're not standing next to each other. Yet." I saw tears spill down his cheeks, but he just nodded. He sat back down on the grass, keeping a respectful distance. And we stayed there, mother and son, separated by 15 feet of empty space, but united by the memory of the man we loved. It was the first step, small, painful, but real. And I knew in that moment that reconciliation was close. We just needed a little more time and a very necessary conversation. January 2024 arrived, bringing suffocating heat and unexpected changes. Ryan was about to hit 6 months of living on his own, without my help, without the safety net he always had. And the changes in him were impossible to ignore. Sarah showed me recent photos. He had buzzed his hair short. To save money on a barber, she explained. He was thinner, but not in a sickly way. It was the lean look of a man who does physical labor, who doesn't have the luxury of eating junk food. He had definition in his arms he'd never had before, from hauling shoeboxes, from standing all day, from living an active life out of necessity, not from some pricey gym. But the biggest shift was in his eyes. They no longer held that oblivious innocence of someone who had never known hardship. They had depth. They held experience. They held lessons learned the hard way. He got promoted, Sarah told me on a Tuesday afternoon. Floor supervisor. He's making real money now. The manager said he's never seen a more dedicated employee. Ryan clocks in half an hour early, leaves half an hour late, volunteers to cover shifts when people call out. Is he overcompensating? I murmured, trying to prove a point? Or maybe he just learned the value of an honest day's work, Sarah shot back. Lucy, you should see him with the customers. Patient, attentive, humble. He doesn't look like the same spoiled kid from months ago. And financially, how is he doing? Money's tight, but he's making it work. With the raise, he can cover his rent and eat a little better. Nothing fancy, but it's not bologna sandwiches anymore. He's stashing away a little bit every month. $50, $100. Says he wants to build an emergency fund. That touched me deeply. Ryan, who never had to save a single dime in his life, was putting away $100 a month because he finally understood that emergencies happen and no one was coming to bail him out. And emotionally, Sarah sighed. He's doing therapy once a week with a counselor who works on a sliding scale. $70 a session. He squeezes it out of his tight budget because he said he needs to understand how he let himself get to that point. How he let himself be so manipulated. I felt a mix of pride and sorrow. Pride because he was seeking help growing. Sorrow because it took so much agony to get him there. The therapist said something interesting, Sarah continued, that Ryan isn't just processing the loss of Chloe and your rejection. He's processing the realization that he was never actually independent, that his entire adult life was an illusion of autonomy bankrolled by your money. And that now, for the first time, at 28 years old, He is finally being a real adult. Did he say that to you? He did. He said it word for word. I thought I was a grown man because I had a condo, a car, a job, but I was just an overgrown kid playing house with my mom's money. Now that I'm actually on my own, I see how immature I really was. Those words echoed in my head for days. My son finally understood. He finally saw it. 2 weeks later, I received another letter from him. Longer this time. Mom, I hit 6 months of independence next week. 6 months that feel like 6 years. I've learned more about myself, about the world, about worth in this time than in 28 years of a comfortable life. I learned that walking 2 miles to save bus fare isn't shameful, it's strategy. I learned that rice and eggs can be a feast when it's bought with the sweat off your own back. I learned that sleeping in a room shared with strangers teaches you humility in a way no lecture ever could. But mostly, I learned about you. I remember you telling me how hard it was in the beginning after Dad died, but I never truly understood. How could I? I lived in a bubble of comfort that you built specifically so I wouldn't have to understand. Now I do. I understand every choice you made, every sacrifice, every sleepless night agonizing over bills, every time you denied yourself something just to give me everything. And I also understand why you cut me off. It wasn't cruelty, it was love. Tough, agonizing, but necessary love. Because if you hadn't done it, I would have stayed that pathetic, dependent man-child forever, taking everything for granted, because I never had to earn a damn thing. I'm not asking for forgiveness yet. I know I don't deserve it. I just want to thank you for raising me, for loving me, and for loving me enough to let me fall when I needed to hit the ground. Your son who finally grew up, Ryan. I read that letter sitting at my kitchen island and I cried. I cried out of relief, out of pride, out of love, because right there was the concrete proof that the lesson had been learned. But it still wasn't time. Something was still missing. I needed to process my own grief, because this wasn't just about teaching Ryan a lesson. It was about healing the deep wound that message, "I'd rather be without a mother," had ripped open inside me. Sarah noticed my hesitation. "Lucy, you're still not ready to forgive him, are you?" "I don't know. Part of me wants to run to him, hug him, fix everything. But the other part, Sarah, that text destroyed me. It made me question 28 years of motherhood. It made me feel disposable, replaceable. But you've seen how he's changed. I've seen what he understands now. I have. And I am proud. But I need more time to heal my own wounds before I unlock that door again. How much time? I don't know. I'll know when the time is right. And that time arrived in a way neither of us saw coming. It was in February, during a massive storm that flooded half the city. Sarah called me frantic. Lucy Ryan's boarding house flooded. A pipe burst on the floor above him, and his room is completely unlivable. He lost the few things he had left. Clothes, documents, everything soaked. My heart stopped. Is he okay? Is he hurt? Physically, he's fine, but Lucy, he has nowhere to go. His roommates lost everything, too. The landlord said it's going to take weeks to fix. And he did? He asked for help? No, not even from me. He's trying to find a temporary shelter, but with the storm, every place is at capacity. Lucy, your son is going to sleep on the street. That was the moment I knew. It was time. Sarah texted me the address of the store where he works. I'm going to get him. Are you sure? Absolutely. It is time to bring my son home. I pulled up to the shoe store at 6:40 p.m. The mall was practically a ghost town because of the storm still hammering the city. I stood outside, watching through the glass. Ryan was in there, helping an elderly woman try on a pair of shoes. Even from a distance, I could see the patience he had with her, explaining the fit, suggesting more comfortable styles. It wasn't the robotic pitch of a guy just trying to make a sale. It was genuine. I waited for the customer to leave, and then I walked in. Ryan had his back to me, organizing boxes on a shelf. When he heard the door chime, he spun around with that automatic retail smile. The smile froze the second he saw me. "Mom," he whispered, looking like he couldn't believe I was actually standing there. We just stood there staring at each other. He was in his store uniform, a blue polo with the logo, plain black slacks. He was thinner than in the photos, his face drawn from exhaustion. But there was something else, too. A straighter posture, a more direct gaze. "Hi, Ryan," I managed to say. You, you, are you okay? Did something happen?" He looked genuinely concerned, not hopeful that I had come for him. "I heard about the flood at the boarding house. I came to get you." He turned pale. "Sarah told you." "She did. And before you say a word, this is not a negotiation. It is pouring outside. You have nowhere to stay, and you are my son. You are coming home with me tonight." I saw tears start to well up in his eyes. "Mom, I can't. It wouldn't be fair. You cut me out of your life for a reason. I don't deserve this. Ryan, I am not asking for permission. I am telling you what is going to happen. You are going to finish your shift. You are going to grab your things, and you are coming with me. We can talk later, but tonight you are not sleeping on the street or in a shelter." He stood in silence, clearly wrestling with a storm of emotions: pride, shame, relief, fear. I barely have anything to grab. Everything got ruined in the flood. I just have this uniform and one change of clothes in my backpack." "Then that's all you're bringing." "What time do you clock out?" "At 7. 10 minutes. I'll wait right here." I sat down on one of the fitting benches and watched him as he finished closing down the store. Every movement was careful, methodical. He counted the register, straightened the last few boxes, ran a mop over the floor. He wasn't sloppy or rushing. He was a professional. At exactly 7 o'clock, the manager stepped out of the back office. He paused when he saw me. "Good evening, ma'am. Can I help you?" Ryan stepped in. "Mr. Davis, this is my mother, Lucy." The manager smiled. "Ah, the famous Miss Lucy. Ryan talks about you a lot. It is a pleasure to meet you. Your son is one of the best employees I've ever had. Dedicated, responsible, great with the customers." I felt my chest swell with pride. "Thank you. I'm very glad to hear that. Ryan, you're good to go. You're off the clock. And remember, you have tomorrow off to deal with the housing situation. Don't come back until Monday unless you've got it sorted out." "Got it. Thank you, Mr. Davis." We walked out to the parking lot together. The rain had slowed to a drizzle. Ryan walked beside me, tense, carrying nothing but a small backpack with his life inside. When we got in the car, the silence was heavy. I drove in silence all the way to my house. He stared out the window, not saying a word. We pulled in. I unlocked the door. Ryan stepped inside slowly, like he was walking on sacred ground he no longer had the right to stand on. "Take a shower, change your clothes. I'll make us something to eat," I said, pointing toward the guest room. "Mom, I don't have clothes to change into, just the uniform I'm wearing and one outfit in my bag." I grabbed some of his old clothes that were still sitting in a closet. "Wear this for now." He took the clothes, went into the room. I heard the shower turn on, and then, muffled by the running water, I heard the sobs. My son was crying in the shower. I went to the kitchen, threw together a simple dinner: rice, beans, steak, a salad. When he came out 20 minutes later, his eyes were bloodshot, but he had composed himself. We sat at the table. He looked at his plate like it was a royal feast. He started eating slowly, savoring every single bite with an intensity that broke my heart. "When was the last time you had a real, full meal?" I asked. "A real one." "About 3 months ago. Usually I just eat rice and eggs or pasta with hot dogs. It's what fits the budget." I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath so I wouldn't cry in front of him. We finished eating in silence. I washed the dishes. He offered to help, but I waved him off. Then we sat down in the living room, facing each other. "Ryan, I need you to understand something. You are here today because there was an emergency. Because you had nowhere to go, and I was not going to leave my son on the street. But that does not mean everything goes back to the way it was. I know, Mom. I didn't expect it. I didn't even dream you would come get me. When I saw you in the store, I thought I was hallucinating. These past 6 months, what have you learned? He took a deep breath. I learned that everything I had wasn't mine. It was yours. I learned that comfort costs blood, sweat, and sacrifice. I learned that people will use you when you have something to offer and throw you away the second you don't. I learned that real love isn't about money. You loved me even when you cut me off because you knew I needed to learn. And I learned that I was an awful son. You weren't awful. You were immature, spoiled, oblivious. I was awful, Mom. I sent you that text. I chose a woman who only wanted to use me over the woman who gave me everything. I threw you away like you were replaceable, and I am not worthy of your forgiveness. But you are trying to be, I said softly. I saw the letters. I saw the gifts. Sarah told me about your job, your therapy, about how you've changed. I changed because I had no other choice, and I am grateful for that. If you hadn't cut me off, I would have been that pathetic man-child forever. I stood up and sat next to him on the couch. Ryan, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want an honest answer. Do you want to come home because you love me, or because you're out of options? He looked me dead in the eyes. 6 months ago, it would have been because I was out of options. Today, it's because I love you. Because I finally grasped the sheer scale of your sacrifice. Because I realized I didn't just lose my comfort, I lost the most important person in my life. And because I want to make you genuinely proud of me, not just with words. And right there, after 6 long months, I finally pulled my son into my arms and forgave him. That first night after the hug, we laid down the ground rules. We sat at the kitchen island with coffee and a notepad, and we talked like adults for the very first time. Ryan, you can stay here while you figure out your housing situation. But you need to understand this is temporary, and it comes with conditions. What conditions? He didn't look offended, just attentive. First, you keep your job. You are not coming back to work for me. You need to build your own career, your own reputation. Completely outside of my shadow. I totally agree. I don't want to go back. I've learned more in 6 months at a shoe store than I did in years pretending to be a manager. Second, you pay rent here at the house. It doesn't have to be a lot, but it has to be something. $200 a month to help with expenses. It's symbolic, but it's important. Mom, with my salary, $200 is a decent chunk of what I make. I know, and that is exactly the point. You need to understand that keeping a roof over your head costs money, that nothing in this life is free. He gave a solemn nod. Fair enough, I'll pay it. Third, you keep saving. Even while paying the $200 here, I want you putting away at least $100 a month. When you have enough, you're going to find your own place. Something simple within your budget, but yours. How long do you think I'll need? I don't know. 6 months, a year? Depends on how you manage your money. But Ryan, it is vital that you move out. Not because I don't want you here, but because you need to prove to yourself that you can truly stand on your own 2 feet. I understand, and I agree. And fourth, therapy continues, non-negotiable. You have deep-seated issues to unpack regarding Chloe, regarding dependency, regarding your self-worth. You need to work on that. I was already planning on keeping it up anyway. Those first few days were strange. Ryan acted like a guest in a hotel, not a son in his home. He asked permission for everything. He meticulously cleaned every single space he occupied. He barely made a sound. It was like living with a very polite ghost. Ryan, you don't need to walk on eggshells around here, I told him over breakfast one morning. This is your home too. As long as you're here, make yourself at home. It's hard, Mom. After everything, I feel like I've lost the right to feel comfortable. You haven't. But it's a different kind of comfortable now. Before, you felt comfortable because you thought everything was automatic guaranteed. Now you can feel comfortable because you are here, under the right conditions, built on mutual respect. Over time, he relaxed. We started talking during meals again. He'd tell me about his job, funny stories about customers, the grind of hitting sales metrics, the dynamics with his coworkers. I'd tell him about the stores, difficult suppliers, my plans for expansion. It was different. Before, when he worked for me, our conversations were shallow. Now we were 2 professionals trading war stories as equals. One night a month after he moved back in, He walked in with an envelope. Mom, first payment. Inside were 2 crisp $100 bills. Ryan, you didn't have to bring cash. You could have just transferred it. I know, but I wanted to hand it to you personally. I wanted you to know I am taking this seriously. I took the cash, and right in front of him, I slipped it into a small lockbox on the bookshelf. I am going to save every dollar you give me. When you're ready to move into your own place, I'll give it back. It'll be your emergency fund. Mom, you don't have to do that. I'm not doing this to make you happy. I'm doing it because it's smart. You need to learn how to build financial security, and I can help you do that without handing it to you on a silver platter. I saw tears well up in his eyes. Thank you. The following months were a slow, steady rebuild. Ryan got promoted again, store manager now pulling in $4,000 a month. He celebrated with me over a cheap six-pack he bought himself. Mom, this is my first real promotion. Earned on merit, not because I'm the owner's kid. I had no idea it would feel this good. That's because it's real. You proved your worth. We started doing things together again. Nothing extravagant. Discount movie tickets on Tuesdays, walking through the park on Sunday mornings, cooking new recipes for dinner at home. Small things that built a real connection without relying on a credit card. He introduced me to his therapist. She requested a session with me to better understand our family dynamic. It was eye-opening. Miss Lucy, what you did was incredibly brave. A lot of parents can't set boundaries with their adult children. Ryan had a crippling emotional and financial dependency. Cutting him off was brutal, but it was the only way. I did the right thing. You did, and the results speak for themselves. The Ryan I met 4 months ago was a broken man, but he was rebuilding. The Ryan sitting here today is a man who found himself. In June, 8 months after he moved back home, Ryan asked to sit down with me. Mom, I found a small apartment. 1 bedroom in a working-class neighborhood. $1,200 a month in rent. With what I've saved these past few months, plus what you're giving back from the lockbox, I have enough for the deposit and the first few months. I think it's time. My chest tightened, but it was a tightness born of pride, not loss. Are you sure? Are you ready? I am. I need to do this. I need to prove I can do it. Then I'll help you move. Not financially, physically. I'll haul boxes with you. He laughed. It's a deal. Moving day was on a Saturday morning. The apartment was genuinely modest. A small living area, a kitchenette, a cramped bedroom, a tiny bathroom. But it was spotless. It had great natural light, and it was close to his job. It's perfect, he said, looking around with bright eyes. It's yours, I replied, earned with your own sweat. When we finished unpacking the few boxes he had, we sat on the floor of the empty living room. Mom, can I say something? Of course. Thank you for letting me fall. Thank you for not catching me when I needed to learn how to save myself. Thank you for loving me enough to hurt me when it was the only way. I grabbed his hand. And thank you for making the most of the fall. For learning. For becoming the man I always knew you could be. Are we good? Like really good? We are. It's different from before, but it's better, more honest, more real. And we're going to stay close, even with me living on my own. We will. But now as independent adults who choose to be in each other's lives, not out of obligation or dependency, out of genuine love. Ryan hugged me. It wasn't the desperate cling of a dependent boy seeking shelter. It was the firm embrace of a grown man thanking the mother who taught him how to fly, even if it meant teaching him how to hit the ground first. I walked out of there knowing I had done my job. I hadn't given him everything he wanted, but I had given him exactly what he needed. Love, boundaries, harsh lessons, and the chance to become someone he could be proud of. And when I looked back before getting into my car, I saw my son standing in the window of that tiny apartment, waving with a genuine smile on his face. A real man, finally. And that was worth more than all the luxury condos and imported cars in the world.